It's time for another Indie Dev Showcase here on the channel. Each Wednesday night, we play nothing but indie games, and these videos are the recaps of those streams. If you'd like me to tickle your game for a future stream and video, please get in touch. Otherwise, all the games that you see here are either press key submissions or demo builds. And we are starting off with the game Shut-In. This is a kind of short form adventure game, kind of like almost like a more sarcastic or comedic version of a lone survivor kind of situation, where we are trapped in our apartment, but unfortunately things have gone horribly wrong. A narrator is trying to be very sarcastic with us, and everything here is trying to kill us in some way, shape, or form. Your mission is to get out of your apartment without dying. And the game is built very much as a linear adventure. While you are free to explore and use your items in however way you see fit, this is still a game where there are lots and lots of death conditions. And when you die, you'll have to restart at the previous checkpoint. I like kind of the, surrealistic aspect of Shut-In, but one of my main issues is that you kind of have to go through a very cumbersome UI in order to make use of different items, and of course having to restart constantly. And this is one of those games where I think the novelty of the constant deaths is going to wear off before you actually make it through to the end. The puzzle logic is definitely not on the advanced side, but it is one of those games where you're going to have to MacGyver your way out of these situations. So overall, Shut-In is one of those games that I think it's going to have a very small audience. If you are an adventure game fan looking for kind of like the old school walk into a room and you're going to die in some way, shape, or form kind of fashion, I would say check this one out. But if you're more of a fan of kind of like the newer style of adventure games, stuff like the Wadget Eyes, that are more about kind of story as opposed to just constant failure, then this one may not work for you. Now up, we have Kosmokrats. This is a kind of choose your own, puzzle adventure kind of game. It takes place in alternate Soviet Union, as we are a potato peeler turned drone pilot who has to build spaceships and various space-related satellites and stations, in space. And, of course, things get quickly out of hand as war breaks out, and it's up to us to just kind of keep building things together. So the game sets itself off as kind of a non-linear campaign. Each mission is fixed, but you can basically keep moving forward no matter how many times you fail. It really only affects what endings that you get. So the main thrust of this gameplay, as you can see here, is gravity, as you're going to have to make use of the physics in order to guide and connect these various parts of these ships together. When you start a level, you're given a basic blueprint as to what you need to connect. The various connectors can only be put together based on color, so yellow to yellow, blue to blue, and so on. If you mess up, you cannot deattach, and your main limitation is going to be completing the various objectives and the power of your drone that you saw at the top of the screen there. When you complete missions, you'll gain various resources or promotions, which will then show up back at your home base or your little workstation here. And there's definitely a charm to the surrealism of Kosmokrat, but if you are looking for more of an advanced game, or if you find the basic kind of trial and error or one-shot success rate annoying, then you may not enjoy this one. But the fact that you can just keep playing and see the story no matter how good or bad you are does help, I think, motivate people to see this one through. And I think the charm does stand out enough. But again, the kind of the limitations of the physics and fighting gravity may prove to be annoying for some. As we move on, we turn to Dojoran. This is a 2D platformer that describes itself as kind of Kaizo-like, although I don't know if I would go that far with it. But this is a challenging game where our goal is we play a frog who is training, I guess, to save the world or something. And our goal is to, well, survive a gauntlet of platforming challenges. Our main mechanics are being able to run, jump, wall jump, as well as spit out apples as a way of providing us with a double jump on top of that. Your goal in each level is to simply get to the end. You can collect bonus coins and collectibles to give you a higher score, or I believe this may unlock multiple endings. The little firefly that's above my character right now is an extra hit, but otherwise you want to try and get through these levels as quickly as you can without taking any damage. Now, while it may not look it from the footage I'm showing so far, Dojoran is a fairly challenging platformer. A lot of the later levels will introduce enemies who can attack you, as well as making a variety of jumps over different obstacles. And this is definitely on the more advanced side of things. But I did enjoy this one. Again, I'm a fan of platformers. The controls are very responsive, and the challenges feel right. And there's definitely a lot of variety in terms of what the game expects out of you, and the fact that each level is 100% handmade. With that said, this is a game that is very much built on one and only one thing, and that is the obstacles and the level design. If you're hoping for a greater story, bonus things to do, anything that is beyond what you're seeing on the screen right now, this is not the game for you. If you are somebody who likes platformers and you're looking for something challenging, but not so much, Kaizo level craziness, then I would say give this one a check. But if you're not a platformer fan, then there's nothing here I feel that's going to convince you otherwise to check it out. With that said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have 3 more games to look at for this week's Spotlight. And as always, if you're interested in more of my thoughts on design, then check out my latest offering of books. For entry-level students, we have 20 Essential Games to Study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with horror coming by the end of 2021. For our next game, we have Paw Paw Paw, and this is a 2D beat-em-up where the story is that the king of a land of animals here went mad with power, forcing everyone to wear pants, and we play the resistance who, I guess, wants to go pantless. Yes, that is the story here. But this is not so much Streets of Rage, but more Castle Crashers with a, animal bent here, or animal focus. So we have our abilities to run, fight, use specials, and you get different classes at the start. Your overall objective is to collect the loot and upgrade your character in order to better defend and fight off the various enemies. The game does feature local and online co-op, but I was unable to show that off with this footage. As the game goes on, you'll be able to level up and apply skill points for each character. This will unlock new combos, improve your weapons, and it becomes more and more important considering how annoying some of the later fights become. When you start fighting bosses who get hyper armor, and it becomes just near impossible to get in and attack them without taking hits yourself. Now, of course, if you're playing this on single player, you really don't have a buddy who can distract them for you. So I do wonder just how much of the balance of this game is built on co-op play, more than you just being able to fight them one-on-one. Overall, Paw 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 is just okay. If you haven't played other beat-em-up style games that are available on Steam, I think there are better alternatives. It's not horrible, and if you do have friends you can play this when, just like with Castle Crushers, then I think there's something here for entertainment purposes. But if you're hoping for kind of a single player, something very deep, or something that's going to hold your attention like Fight and Rage or Streets of Rage, I don't think Paw 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 is going to work for you. We now turn to Kunai, and this is a Metroidvania where we play this very happy-go-lucky robot who apparently is going to have to save the world from the robot apocalypse. And this is definitely a Metroidvania through and through, as we have to explore the world, gather upgrades, murder lots and lots of things, and grapple our way to victory here. The grappling is probably the best part of Kunai. It's a far more intuitive and I think enjoyable version of the grapple we see in stuff like Bionic Commando. I get free reign to jump, and as you can see, pogo slashing works really well in this game. And the general progression is, again, basic Metroidvania. The world is quote-unquote non-linear, but you are going to be tied to finding certain upgrades in order to move forward. The resources that you collect off of defeated enemies will allow you to upgrade your robot, give yourself more health, combos, etc, etc. And there's definitely a charm to this game. I really like the aesthetics. And the story has that kind of, everything is very cutesy, but it's still post-apocalyptic evil going on right now. The main issues I see people have, and what I found with Kunai, is that it's both very easy and very hard. And that may be safely extreme. But the general moment-to-moment gameplay is not going to tax you, I think, anywhere. There's a lot of secrets to find, a lot of optional things to do, but for the most part, you're pretty much given a solid idea of where you need to go and what you need to be doing. But then you'll start to get to some very challenging platforming sections, the enemies become more annoying, and things can become frustrating in terms of making progress, especially when the distance between save points gets larger and larger. And I would say the final quarter of Kunai does get incredibly challenging if you're not kind of prepared for it in terms of getting right weapon upgrades, health, etc. And there have been complaints about the final boss. And I remember the final boss did cause me some trouble. I did manage to get through it. But again, the game I think is one of those examples of a title that it starts better than it finishes, if that makes any sense. And I would really love to see developers kind of do more with the platforming, the moment-to-moment kind of agility that your character has, as opposed to having this kind of secondary focus on combat. If you are a Metroidvania fan, or more specifically a fan of platformers that really give you that sense of momentum and movement, then definitely check out Kunai. But if this doesn't sound appealing, or if you haven't played other examples of Metroidvanias, then I think there are more all-encompassing examples available. For our final game of the spotlight, we have Kilta. This is in early access, and we played this about, I think, like 6-7 months ago. And for longtime fans, you know I've always been a sucker for kind of character collector, guild management style games. And that's what originally attracted me to Kilta. You run a fantasy guild, you invite people into your party, and you send them out to go on quests and bring back rewards, and the gameplay loop repeats. So it all sounds really great, but there is unfortunately one major downside for fans who are looking for this kind of gameplay. And that is, this is entirely an auto battler. Every character comes with a class that affects, where they're best placed on the field, as well as special abilities that they may cast during combat. But once you start fighting, as you see here, you are entirely hands off. And the problem with this is it makes it a lot harder to kind of determine what you need to do or why your party is winning or losing a fight. And this has always been kind of the nature of auto-battler kind of systems. Since you can choose which heroes to recruit at each major event, that does give you a little bit more control. But like with these kinds of designs, it's about your entire party's composition more than just having one really good character or one really good piece of gear. So there is that sense of strategy and decision making at play. But without having direct control, or any kind of control, it's very hard to kind of get motivated or feel like you are really impacting things when you're just watching the entire combat play out, however it may be. And from what we played, there didn't seem to be any kind of actual guild management or organization going on, other than just putting items on characters. So with that said, again, I like the basic concept, but I'm still waiting for one of these kinds of games to really wow me with the overall design and management style system. But with that said, we're going to wrap up this week's Spotlight here. As always, there'll be links to all the games in the description down below. If you'd like to submit a game again for a future stream and video, please get in touch. Check out our Discord and Patreon link down below, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where we sum the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.